Welcome back, or welcome to Grateful and Full of Greatness. I'm your host, Mark Lassini. On this podcast, I sit down with guests who, in my opinion, live their lives with the pursuit of greatness in mind. This platform allows me to discuss and to explain strategies that go into reaching peak performance. This is episode number 29. My guest is Bill Naslonski. A member of the New York Lacrosse Hall of Fame, Bill still holds the single-season scoring record at Rutgers University. Born and raised in the lacrosse hotbed of Farmingdale, Bill currently owns two New Balance license stores on Long Island. It is fair to say that I may have never picked up a lacrosse stick in middle school if Bill, alongside Bruce Blake and Brian Callanan, did not start, organize, and coach the youth lacrosse program in Mahwah, New Jersey in the early 2000s. When it comes to the sport of lacrosse, few have accomplished as much as Bill, from All-American to captain to MVP, multiple awards, and coaching. For my first lacrosse practice, Bill was there. 17 years later, here we are today. Bill, thank you so much for coming on.
Thanks, Mark. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm pretty excited to get this podcast going. As I said earlier, it's my first one, and I want to be able to check that box. I finally did a podcast. So
there you go. And I'm sure it'll be great. So my first question will be, the sport of lacrosse seems to run deep in the fabric of the Naslonski family. Could you share some of your earliest memories of lacrosse in your life and how much it was and is embraced by your family?
Yeah, no problem. I mean, I grew up with four brothers. So we had pretty much a small house, and it was an extremely competitive household. Sports was the center of everything. I can tell you right now, I was not a straight A student, and wasn't the guy who came home and opened the book. At the end of the day, I went out and played ball, and we as a family were out playing football, lacrosse, basketball, whatever it might be, till the sun came down, and that was it. And the bell rang, and my mom's calling us in, and probably a half an hour after that, we finally got in. So, it was certainly a highlight of my life was football, because Farmingdale was a football powerhouse, and it was the Saturday afternoon thing to do, go to the high school football game, So it was really football until lacrosse came along. And ironically enough, when I was young, lacrosse just got started in Farmingdale, just like it did when I came to Mahwah. So it was very interesting, because lacrosse was popping up all over the different towns, and Farmingdale had to get involved in it. And when I was like 8 or 9 years old, it was really the first time we had youth lacrosse in Farmingdale. So it became really embedded in my family, because my dad was very involved with the start of that program. Yeah. So he started it with a bunch of dads in Farmingdale, and got it going just as we did in Mahwah. I remember a few things, not too much, but back then, you think about it, right? There's no internet, there's no cell phones, there's nothing really going on. So I can only imagine how hard it was to get something going back then. And then, I'll remember one night, we had 40 football helmets in our basement, and we're taking off the football masks and drilling and putting on lacrosse masks, because obviously you can't can't wear a football helmet, the ball will go right through it, right? So, that's how intense it was. And our first season, we actually used hockey gloves. And if you know about a hockey glove, there's a hard piece of plastic in the thumb. So it was a little difficult to grab a stick, but that's what we had to do. So we improvised, I guess, and it all went from there. We kind of followed the lead of my older brother. He started playing lacrosse, and football and everything else. So, and everybody just followed the lead of what he did. So, yeah, we were definitely a sports-oriented family and very competitive, very, very competitive. And I think that helped me through my life.
I love the grassroots story of it. One of the questions that comes to my mind is when I was shifting from baseball to lacrosse in fifth grade because of you and starting the program there, it was more of an aha thing where when I got a lacrosse stick in my hand and kind of the up and down pace of it, one of the main reasons I gave up baseball is because I was eating too many sunflower seeds in center field, right? That time between tasks type of thing. And it was really just fit with kind of the energy I needed to release. What was it like for you making that shift from primarily football and other sports into lacrosse? Was it the same kind of aha, or is it something that came more gradual?
Yeah, I would say, Mark, for sure. It was definitely that. I played baseball my first year or two when I was eligible to play baseball, as you did. And at that point, it was almost no choice because my dad was so involved in it that, I had no choice. I was like, boom, he was coaching, I'm playing lacrosse. So, and I don't want to, diminish baseball at all, but it is a different type of game. It's a definitely more relaxed game to a degree. And lacrosse, as soon as you started, you knew you were in, and that's the way it went. But I do remember going to a lacrosse practice in Mawa, and I lived close to the field, so I would walk sometimes, going by the baseball field and seeing you in that on deck batter's box, looking at you and saying, what are you doing over there, Mark? You ought to be over there. I remember that.
Wow. I'll tell you what, I think one of the questions I definitely wanted to ask you, and you've already brought up your dad twice, was the power of mentors. Who were some of your earliest and greatest influences during your childhood and then your young adult life? Because I know you had Hall of Fame coaches at Farmingdale as well. So who are the ones that stand out as really impactful from early on?
Yeah, so I think my family are probably my biggest mentors and role models. We were very, very close as a family. My dad was, Farmingdale was a very blue collar town, very blue collar. So, he was a hard worker, up early, home late, coaching five boys. He didn't have much free time. So it was he was definitely a big influence in my life, no doubt about it. When I think back now of what went on in our household, I can't even imagine how my mom survived. I mean, we not only had five kids, we had five boys. We were all relatively close in age, and it was so competitive. She was probably, the strongest out of everybody when you think about it. I remember times growing up where we were just so overwhelmed with laundry that my mom would throw her hands up. We'd put all our dirty clothes in plastic bags and make a trip to the laundromat because it would take 2 days to do it at home if we had to do it.
Sure.
So,
Wow.
yeah. So it was interesting. It was interesting. But you bring up the coaches, and I think that I was really blessed with coaches. I mean, my football coaches growing up when I was young were real good. Obviously, Farmingdale had a Hall of Fame legendary football coach, Don Snyder, who I played for in high school, and going into college, playing at Rutgers for Coach Hayes. I was just extremely lucky. These guys knew how to get the most out of you, and that's the key to coaching. You're familiar. Your career, you've had some great coaches as well, including Brian Callanan, as well as your college coaches, and you're playing in the professional leagues now. And you know that it takes people like that to really get the most out of you. It's nothing. You don't do it on your own, and And I've been really, really blessed with the coaches that I had through my career, for sure.
Yeah, I think of the Jim Valvano quote that says that my father did the most important thing in the world. He believed in me, and I think it goes hand in hand with you're saying about coaches, mentors, parents, all of that, because you're so impressionable as a young kid, and you're looking up, and even into your teenage years, you're looking for people to have guiding lights. And I would agree with you that I was certainly blessed on that realm as well. But you've had such great success, Bill, from a young age in Farmingdale's youth program to high school, then Rutgers, which we'll get into, and beyond. What, besides your competitive nature, what key factors would you attribute that to for an aspiring athlete who might be listening? What's like one or two pieces of advice that you'd say made all the difference for you growing up?
Well, I think, it comes down to work ethic, really, right? You have to be willing to put the time in to whatever you're doing. Um, you have to be confident in what you're doing, for sure. And preparation is really the key, because to build the right amount of confidence that you need to go out and no matter what you're doing, not just sports, in anything you're doing, you really have to have the confidence to do it. And preparation is key. You need that repetitiveness. You need to prepare to be great. So I think, and then once you do that, your kind of mind just takes over and it becomes routine, and you have that confidence. Some of the best plays, you know this as an athlete, some of the best plays you've made were without even thinking. It just came because of the situation you're in, and next thing you know, boom, it happens, and you're not thinking about step one, step two, step three. It just kind of happens, and you only get that euphoria if you're prepared and you have that confidence.
I think you're touching on something so important in performance psychology. There's this author, Robert Greene, who just wrote a book on mastery, who said 99% of your problems come from thinking. And he talks about the mind, and then in performance psychology, it's that kind of idea of just. And you don't even think about it. It just happens. It's a mindset that you're in. It's an unconscious competence where you've done it so repeatedly that you don't know any other way. There's a Netflix series called Cheer about competitive cheerleading down in Navarro, Texas. And the coach talks about, we don't do something, a routine, until we get it right. We do it till we can't get it wrong. Because there's just the same way you have muscle memory, the same thing happens with your mind. One thing I love about your story, and as I was doing research and getting ready for the podcast, was it was obvious how much you love sport and your passion for lacrosse, but you're also drawn to grow the sport. I'm so grateful that you started in Mawa, because then I don't have a lacrosse career if it wasn't for you. Could you share the backstory of starting Mawa, and perhaps why it was important to you to do something like that of contribution and growing the sport?
Yeah, no question. It is a great story. I am definitely proud of it. There were a lot of people involved in it. You brought up Bruce Blake already. We'll get, I'll kind of put together the story as best I can remember it. But really, what happened was, so I moved from Long Island to New Jersey in the early 2000s. I think it was 2001, actually. But I got here for work purposes, and I had a young daughter who we got involved in brownies right away, like a brownie group, Girl Scouts. And almost the first event that we had when I got here, I don't think I was here 2 weeks even, and we go to this brownie bowling outing where I take my daughter. It was a daddy-daughter bowling outing, right? And I get there and I run into, some people from Mawa who have children around the same age. And one of them happens to be Bruce Blake. So we get to talking about our backgrounds, and we hit it off right away. He became a, extremely close friend of mine to even today. We do things together, and what a great guy. But so we get
Absolutely.
together at this outing and talk a little bit about our backgrounds, and he somehow we get into lacrosse, and his eyes just completely light up, and it hit a nerve, and there was definitely some seeds planted already before this Brownie bowling outing, because he was interested in getting the program started, because his son Jamie, who you know very well,
Yes.
played in a summer league for another town the year before, and really loved it. And Bruce wanted to get it going in Mawa, but it was very tentative because he didn't know much about the sport and what have you. So we met at this bowling outing, and I got to tell you, from then it was like, I think the next night we had a meeting together, and we were starting to put together all of these plans on how we're going to do this, what we needed to do. I mean, it became like a quest, and almost like starting up a business. It was that intense. We put together a 5-year program, how we wanted to start it, how we wanted to get it into the high school, along with the age groups. We started it, at the 4th grade level. As you know, you were one of the original Mawa lacrosse guys, and grew the program for the next 5 years right into the high school, where it could be taken over and handed over, so to speak, to whoever would be there. But it wasn't easy. It was, we had Board of Education meetings. We needed approvals there. We had to fundraise. We had to do a lot of things, and probably we didn't even really know how much interest there was. We could start a program. Are we going to get youth to come out and play, right? So the first thing we did is we ran a kind of a clinic. Was the first thing we did. We invited anybody and everybody to this clinic on a Saturday morning, and we had no idea what to expect. None whatsoever. We were thinking if we had 30 kids or whatever, that'd be a success, and we'd grow from there, right? Mark, I got to tell you, we had probably 100 kids.
Outstanding.
It was unbelievable. We had, people sign up in advance, so we knew what we were in for. And then I reached out to a lot of people I know, in the game of lacrosse. And as you know, everybody's willing to help. So we had Brooks Sweet. I don't know if you know Brooks Sweet from he's an STX guy, and he played for UMass, and he worked for STX at the time, and he brought a couple of guys down to help us out. I had all my brothers there. We brought in some people from around other towns that knew something about lacrosse, and helped us out with it. And it was extremely successful. And we just kind of grew it right from there. And it was just a never-ending battle to the end.
I just love it. And I was going to ask you, what do you think was the differentiator, right? Because when we look around and we want the sport of lacrosse to continue to grow, you were expecting 10 to 20 kids, and 100 came out. Would you say the differentiator was your network and your connections and your reaching out? Is that what it was?
I think that I honestly, I don't think it was really so much that. I think there was pent up demand for the game of lacrosse in the area.
Got it.
Everybody knew about Ridgewood and their program that was probably around for 20 years before Mawa started their program. And you pick up a paper and you see all this going on and all, and I think it was just the growth of that sport, and Mawa not being involved in it really caught the attention of most everybody. And that's really what started it, I think. I don't think it had really anything to do with me or anybody I brought in to help. I mean, that probably, gave everybody, anchored them in and said, this is great, because the clinic was run very well. We had a lot of fun. It wasn't even focused so much on learning how to play lacrosse. It was just how much fun you could have playing lacrosse, And then the next year, we started with a 4th grade team, a 5th grade team, a 6th grade team, and we also did girls at the same time. So we had to. The biggest obstacle we had was after the first year getting coaching, because nobody really knew the game in the town of Mahwah. So the first year we survived because Bruce, myself, Brian, we did everything. We coached every team. We were at every single practice. We took on parents and taught them the game at that time. And then the next year, when it expanded to more teams, and the year after that, when it expanded to more teams, then we really had to get intense. And what we decided to do is we put this plan together to actually teach and coach the parents to learn the game. And we put together a book. I still have these books in my files too. It's funny, but
oh, come on, you got to share it. Yeah.
I mean, you didn't have to know a thing about lacrosse. You could go down the field with that book and start. I mean, there was illustrations of drills, man up plays, man down situations. Everything you could imagine was in that book.
Are you telling me that book's not published? Is it collecting dust?
I will tell you this, that there have been many towns after us that have come to us, and we have offered up our books and plan to them, and they followed it to a T.
My gosh.
Yeah. So, it was tough for us. It was a lot of effort, and then easier going forward for everybody else. But we were very happy to help. And there's some towns around us that followed the thing to a T, and we helped them out dearly. So that worked out well. But I will tell you that the satisfaction that we got putting this program together, and then when you guys in your high school career, when you won that county championship and you beat Bergen County and Ridgewood, and I mean, it gives
Bergen
me
Catholic.
Bergen Catholic, right? It gives me goosebumps, because I mean, that's the ultimate culmination of a lot of hard work from a lot of people, and you guys kind of put the icing on the cake, and it was very fulfilling.
Oh, I love that. And like I said, before I asked the question, I'm filled with gratitude because, and I love how you shared the playbook, success leaves clues. That's what I always talk about in mental performance, right? There's somebody out there that's getting the results that you want to have. Go follow what they did. I mean, a couple of questions earlier, you talked about work ethic and preparation, and never more evident in that story for you guys. Most startups happen, I don't know, idea comes from a coffee shop or inside of a garage. You did it at a brownie bowling alley, so that's good to hear. Maybe that's where the best ideas come from. And then one of the last things it made me think of is there's this cool video. It's a TED Talk by this guy, Bill Gross, who talks about why startups succeed. And yes, he's talking about business startups, but he breaks it into 5 dimensions. And when I asked you, do you think it was connections? You said there was a pent up demand for it. And Bill Gross's kind of research within the field of why businesses fail versus succeed, he says it really comes down to timing. And then the second variable is team and execution. And only third is the idea. So it really comes down to, is there a demand for it? Are people wanting it right now? And then, of course, number two is the team and execution. And then why do the business fail? It's cash flow usually, and you said it's coach flow, right? So you had to get the parents all signed up and trained up. So that's such an amazing story, and thank you so much again for starting the program. I wouldn't be who I am if it didn't start. That's for sure. You set so many records.
I appreciate the compliments, but Mark, I have to tell you, knowing you and coaching you through those years, you would have found your way to the top, because the cream always rises, and you are one of those guys. There's no question about it. So I'll take a little credit maybe for putting a stick in your hand early, but other than that, it's all you.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much for saying that. So going to you now, you set so many records at Rutgers and have had an illustrious career post lacrosse and sales. But I'm not sure without difficulty. And maybe, do you mind sharing any hardships or inflection points you faced along the way? Something that made such a great story in the backstory of Mawa was the fact that it wasn't easy and there was intense planning. But what about in your personal life? What kind of helped Bill become who you are today?
Well, I guess everybody goes through, their ups and downs. There's no question about it. I think through my younger life, I didn't have, too much downside, really, so to speak. Later on in life, in the beginning of growing the Mawa program, losing my dad, and then a few years after that, losing my mom that was probably the saddest time of my life, but it also showed really, how important having a close-knit family and, a tight group of friends to help you get through times like that. Again, it is really nothing that's done alone. You need a support base, and, so good things come out of bad things, and knowing that you have family and friends backing you up and get you through hard times always helps. I had late in the back half of my college career, I started developing a back problem. I had degenerative disc disease, which was always a hurdle. I know you're familiar with injuries and setbacks like that. So, I had to deal with that, and it wasn't anything that really held me back, but I really, had to take care of it, half an hour hot shower before you even stepped on the field, things like that, the ice baths afterwards. And, you constantly had to watch what you were doing and prevent, turning the wrong way. And once that acted up on you, you dealt with it for quite a while. So that was always, on my mind, and I always had to deal with that. But again, it was one of those things that, when you're on a field and you start to, get in that zone, there wasn't too much that would stop you. And you kind of put it behind you. You deal with it, but you put it behind you. So mind over matter, I guess,
Absolutely. And, I was just talking to Matt Naslonski, one of Farmingdale's finest, before we hopped on, and he did mention that you are a legend in those parts, just so you know. And one of the points that I want to point out about the pain that you went through, and I'm just reading Rafael Nadal's autobiography, and from the very first chapter, something Rafa's talking about is that these extreme athletes, you're not supposed to put your body through these things, right? And there is a lot of breakdowns, and maybe a good quote for listeners to think about is, when a bad thing happens, one of my mentors always said to me, because of this, something good will happen. And that transfers right into the next question I want to ask you, Bill, is how did your mentality cultivated in sports from growing up and then into lacrosse at Rutgers and beyond? How did you apply that into your work and other facets of your life as a husband, as a father, as a friend?
Yeah, well, I firmly believe that, sports and sports mentality is definitely integrated into whatever you do. I grew up and my first career before I opened up my New Balance stores, I was a sales rep, independent contractor, and I wanted to do that from the day I graduated college because I liked the competition and I wanted to keep that kind of sports mentality going in my career. And it was perfect. It was a perfect way to do it because, I was on my own. I was creating my own destiny. And I knew that if I could get the chance and break into that field, I knew I'd be successful just for the simple fact that I would outwork anybody. You know, I might not have had the best, sales phrases or whatever, but I'd outwork anybody, and I do whatever it takes to succeed. And that comes from playing sports. There is no doubt about it. You have to have that competitive nature in you, which I had from growing up, not even touching a field. I mean, if we were late for dinner, we might not have ate that night, So you had to get there and get your share right out of the box. I mean, we had five boys there, going after a pound of ham and a half a pound of cream cheese or something, and if you weren't there early enough to get it, you were left out. So and then just taking that mentality to the field and then into my professional career, um, I think that absolutely helped me along the way, and no regrets, that's for sure.
In this book called The Happiness Advantage by Sean Anker, he talks about what exactly you talked about in the transfer from your sports mentality into a competitive field. He said most athletes, they compete so much that they can't stop competing. Same with lawyers, they can't stop interrogating, even their children. And then accountants can't stop counting. And it's like whatever you train yourself to do, you should keep pouring yourself into those things. One of the questions that I had to ask you, and you touched upon it a bunch, maybe it's more probing for specifics, but it's clear that you thrived in sports and in sales because of your competitive edge. For somebody listening to this that wants to gain a little bit more competitive fire, you use the term competitive nature. But do you think that there's a story that comes to mind for you, or a skill that you cultivated that you learned, or a strategy you used to get that competitive edge after you're done with sports in the workplace?
I think that I'm not sure I have the correct answer for that. However, I think that, you know, when you're so competitive throughout your life and winning becomes the ultimate goal, it becomes the ultimate goal in everything you do. Um, so, whether you're out there on the golf course, even on a Saturday afternoon, thinking, you're playing golf for fun, I don't think there's anybody really that goes out there and doesn't want to beat the guy in a cart with you, right? So, you always, and some people have it more than others. You know what I mean? I think everybody has the potential to really have that winning mentality or win at all cost mentality, but it's what you've done through your life to bring that out, and I think that's the difference maker in some of the best athletes in their field. It's they have so many people have talent, but to take that talent and bring it to a high level, that's not an easy thing to do. So um, I think the win at all cost mentality is really what gets you over the top.
Outstanding. Beautifully said. Dr. Rob Gilbert, my mentor in applied psychology, his favorite word is training. And he says, you can be trained to do anything. That's what he firmly believes with every fiber of his soul. And I was listening to the very successful Jesse Itzler talk the other day about leadership. And he says it really comes down to Olympic standards. And whether you are an Olympian or not, you better have Olympic standards, right? And it goes hand in hand with what you accept, you promote, right? So I think it's one of those things where once you set a standard for yourself, you're going to keep hitting it, right? It's probably worse than to aim too low and hit it rather than shoot for the moon, if you know what I'm saying. So where I want to go is to ask you, you have that win at all cost mentality. But outside of sports, where do you invest most of your time? Do you find it hard to shut off that competitive edge? Do you shut it down after a long work week, or do you pour yourself into passion projects?
Well, believe it or not, I still play lacrosse even at my age. So, I play in a summer league. I've never missed a summer league. Play in winter leagues outside of this past year where the winter leagues were shut down. I go to the Lake Placid, the Florida Classic tournaments. We get together and play as a team. I'm getting smarter in my old age because I'm learning to play with kids my own age, so to speak, rather than play in the younger leagues where it takes me about a week to start walking normal again. But it's a lot of fun. We get together with old teammates and awesome. Lacrosse guys, as you know, and it's a lot about getting together and the camaraderie between everybody, as well as getting there and still being able to compete on the field. And so it's fun. I love to do it, and I think I'm gonna have that mentality to play until I can't. And really, that's what I do for fun. I do some carpentry around. I make some furniture and things like that. Mostly outdoor furniture. I'm not that good that I can make indoor furniture. So. But it keeps me busy during some downtime.
Outstanding. One of the things I wanted to ask you since the very beginning, because you've been in the lacrosse family for decades longer than I have, but I know how special it is to me and what it's done for my life. Could you maybe share some light for a non-lacrosse listener, about what the camaraderie and the community of lacrosse is like and what it's been like for you all these years?
Yeah, I think that anybody involved in a sport, any sport, they think their sport is special, and it is to them. There's no question about it. And having played many sports in my life, there is a difference between a lacrosse guy, and I don't know, a football guy or whatever. And I think it comes from the afterlife of lacrosse. Lacrosse, you're able to play. I mean, I'm 60 years old now and I'm still playing. There's no 60-year-old playing football anymore, that's for sure. You know what I mean? So it's a unique sport, and it's played competitively. It's not like pick up basketball game and things like that. So it's and when you played lacrosse and I don't think there's anybody alive today who started a football program. That's been around forever. People still have lacrosse embedded in their lives from the start to the finish, and it's a different kind of person and a different type of community. Lacrosse. I think you reach out to a lacrosse guy and ask for something, ask for help to do a clinic, to do this, to do that. Everybody's willing to help. There's no question about it. And it's a nice community to be involved in. It's unique in its way. And I'm so grateful that I got involved in it.
Yeah, and I couldn't agree more with you. You know, I've had Lyle Thompson on here. I've had Michelle Tumalo on here, Kylie O'Miller on here. And I think regardless, it goes across nationality, gender, you name it. And there's just a camaraderie behind it. And it's just so powerful. And I only describe it this way. If I walk across a pickup basketball game, I keep walking. If I walk across somebody playing wall ball, I ask where they play. And there's something special about that in and of itself. Bill, if you were to
You are
reflect,
100% right about that. It is a conversation starter. There is no doubt about it.
if you were to reflect on your journey, since now that you're still deep into the game, but probably right after your time at Rutgers and when you were just starting out into your sales career, what is something that you know now that you wish you knew right then? Whether it was outside of the transfer of sports mentality into your time as an independent contractor sales rep, what is something that you wish you knew then that you know now?
Um, well, I would say, I would say that if I have any regrets, or if I had to go back and do it something again, I would say that I probably would have maybe paid more attention to the education side of things, um, and put that maybe more on the front burner than I did. I I was all about lacrosse in college. I mean, I woke up, did what I had to do, wanted to get to practice, wanted to play that game, and it was a good thing because without it, I don't know that I would have made it through school. So lacrosse pushed me to the levels that I needed to get to play 4 years of college and beyond. So, and then as when you get out of college and you go into your professional career, you have no regrets. However, I would say that I had some catching up to do, on some things when I got out of college to get me up to speed, and I did, and I could have made it easier on myself if I probably took a little bit more seriousness on the school side of things.
Outstanding. You know, one of the topics I wanted to cover with you was time management, right? Regardless of age, time management seems to be a major differentiator between average and high performer. You balancing so many things from starting a program to the business that you run to lacrosse, then being a family member, a husband, a father, a friend. What do you do? What kind of strategies do you use to kind of embrace all those hats that you have to wear?
Yeah, it is an issue. Time management. There's no question about it. I think the critical thing in time management is not to let yourself get overwhelmed. If you get to the point where you're overwhelmed, you're lost. Um, so what I did, whether it's right, wrong, or whatever, but it worked for me. Is I would never push things off to another day. If things had to get done, I'd do it. Didn't matter how late, how early I had to get up or whatever. It was stay ahead of it and not get overwhelmed, because that when you start to get overwhelmed, it's easy to throw your hands up, and even the most intense person can do that at times. So I always looked at making sure I never overwhelmed myself with anything. And whether it took, a 12, 14, 16-hour day to get there, that's what I did. And here I am today. So,
I would say I'm definitely a firm believer in how you do anything is how you do everything. And kind of the idea that comes to mind when you say that, not putting things off is, anything easy to do is easy not to. And that's kind of where things compile on top of each other. And that's where you become overwhelmed. I do want to shift back to lacrosse because you did build such a successful program. And you've accomplished so much within the sport that we both love. What is a more specific question? What do you think is a strategy that the lacrosse world needs to embrace to gain more exposure nationally or globally?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. I mean, lacrosse has gone through such an amazing growth spurt over the past 20 years. It would be hard to keep that kind of growth percentage going. However, I think that it is 100% done at the grassroots side of things. Um, what you guys are doing now in professional lacrosse is helping the visibility that you have now on TV and streaming and things like that. You can turn any given Saturday now, you can turn on a TV and have a nationally televised lacrosse game. That's going to help. But the grassroots, we all know that once you start this game of lacrosse, you're going to continue the game of lacrosse for the most part. And that grassroots has got to continue. And that will sustain the growth of lacrosse. And I may not be around to see it as big as I'd like to, but you might. And I think it's going to continue to grow and gain viewership as well as playership, no doubt about it.
Bill, I wouldn't be surprised if you were still throwing behind the back passes at 90 up at Lake Placid, just saying that. But I think grassroots, you hit on the head, and we're doing a little hero's journey here as we come to the fourth quarter of this podcast. And as I mentioned right in the very beginning, you were inducted into the New York Lacrosse Hall of Fame, which is no small feat. Talking grassroots, is that something that you dreamed about or imagined when you were really young, or is that something that only came into vision over the years?
No, I'll be honest with you. It definitely was part of my plan from when I was younger. I was a three-sport guy, as you were, and my second, I guess that's when I was a junior in high school. I went down to two sports, football and lacrosse, and had a passion for both of them, but knew that lacrosse was going to win out just because of the nature of the game. I was 5'10", 185-pound guy. Football really wasn't in the cards, so to speak. So I knew I wanted to go and play at a high level of lacrosse in college, and that was my quest. I was going to go Division I, if I could, obviously, but that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to, and then, after my college career, we didn't have professional lacrosse. We had club lacrosse, as you probably know. And I jumped right into club lacrosse, played for Long Island Lacrosse Club. We won 3 straight national championships there. And then I was involved in the inaugural start of the indoor lacrosse league, and played that for a couple of years, which was extremely tough on the body. We were playing. I mean that. If I played more in that league, I might not be playing now, but that was a rough one.
Absolutely.
And then moved on to the outdoor professional league, and had a couple rough starts in that. But again, it's something that you have to go through that process. Some of them are gonna make it, some of them are gonna fail, and but it got us to where we are today. So.
Absolutely. Nowadays, you still have lacrosse. It's still a major through line in your life. But what would you say drives you day to day? What makes you tick?
You revert back on your family. I think that everything that I've gone through in my life, it's all good. But now it's really about family, family and your friends. You always have a close group of tight friends. And really it's that drives me. I just want to be successful, to help out my family in any way that I can, and that's the driving force behind really everything that I do right now. If not for family, I'd be retired already, I'm sure. So
Right. I'm
yeah.
so glad you said that. And I mean, it shows what type of guy you are. And, I think relationships at the center of everything, number one thing. You touched upon education earlier, and through your journey, there's a lot of younger student athletes, young coaches, young professionals that can learn within sport or otherwise. However, since this podcast revolves more or less around performance, from your perspectives, what kind of factors around practice, recovery, or training stand out in your mind that uh, took you to the next level, or maybe you could have paid more attention to, or are definitely leading factors into performance, starting within sport?
Yeah, I mean that's a good question, and I guess I'm probably a pretty good guy to ask this question too, because I am 60 years old, and when I go back to my younger career, my college career, let's say, or high school career even, it was absolutely very different than it is today. There's no question about it. When you go back to when I was playing, it was, the no pain, no gain kind of mentality, right? So where we know today that that's probably the furthest thing from the truth, and where sports medicine has come into play now, and the mental side of things, the stuff that you're doing is so critically important that was non-existent back in the day. Has brought all sports to new levels, and even athletes to new levels, bigger, stronger, faster, the whole deal, and I, I wish we knew more about that when I was younger, So
And
our
I could,
our kind of mentality to get carbs in your system was have a beer the night before you were going to play, and it's so a little
I'll, t-
different now.
I tell you what, I probably should have, and I will now. I kind of look under the hood of you as that All-American in Rutgers, setting records. You touched upon it a little bit, and I congratulated you on it. But what kind of made you stand out at the collegiate ranks, help you become an All-American while you were at Rutgers? What were some differentiating factors there at the college level?
Um, I, I'd say when I was a freshman and went to Rutgers, I was a midfielder. I went and played midfield. And one of the main reasons I played midfield was I was the fastest guy on the team, and I was a decent face-off guy. And so I got pigeonholed into playing midfield. Whereas in high school, I played midfield, but I also played attack, and attack was my predominant position. So if you remember back in the youth days, Mark, I
I know where you're going.
you know where I'm going here, right? There were certain people who never came off the field, right? So we had a kind of strategy when you were young, is when your midfield was off the field, you went down to attack. And when your midfield was back on the field, you'd move up to the midfield. So we had certain people like you that would never come off the field, and that enabled us to put other people, in the game. We always played everybody, and as you know, and that kind of thing. But when you have your best people on the field at all times, it's a game changer. So when I first went to college and was a midfielder, my junior and senior year, I moved to attack, and it kind of it kind of put a different type of mentality in my mind that, okay, I'm moving to attack because we need scoring, and I'm going to succeed, and I'm going to prove the coaches right that they made this nice move, and this right move and this correct move. And it did, and it worked out. And, I played 2 years of attack, and that's where I kind of became the leading scorer and things like that. If I would have stayed at midfielder, I would have just kind of blended in. So it took the coaches to kind of make that move, and maybe me pushing them a little bit, but it all worked out, So
Definitely. From the very start and to the very last question that's coming up right here, it's kind of obvious. Obviously, I'm a huge proponent of the mental game, mental performance, but your mentality, your mindset, you talking about it shifting from freshman to junior to senior year to whatever you need to get done, that competitive fire is evident throughout this entire podcast. So staying along that thread, and the last question I'll ask you more specifically, you've done great things. But how would you define greatness? When you look around, what does greatness look like to you?
I that's a tough question. It is a tough question. And I think, if you want to really answer it honestly, it's how other people perceive you. Not so much really, I did this, I did that, and, I'm at the top of that list and that list. It's how other people perceive you, and that's really what you want to accomplish, is a real nice perception from other people that not only, were you a good player, did you succeed in whatever you did, but you were straight up kind of guy, and you don't have many enemies, and if that happens, I think, that's kind of the ultimate success, really, right?
I love that answer, and I was not along as you were talking, because I completely agree. It's kind of the legacy that you leave. Your perception is reality, and I just want to thank you for coming on here. Thank you for starting the Mawa Lacrosse program. This is year 2 of this podcast, but still season 1 in a lot of ways. And I just wanted to make sure I had everyone on there that I owed it a debt of gratitude to. And thank you so much for coming on, and thank you for everything you've done for me from a young athlete to now. So thank you so much, Bill.
Mark, thanks for having me. I appreciate it. I'm happy to do it. I can finally check that, podcast box now. And I don't want to leave without congratulating you on your career, both in lacrosse as well as your professional career and where you're headed. You're doing a fabulous job. You're extremely smart, and like I said, the cream rises to the top always, and you're going to be right up there. So congratulations on your career and all your accomplishments, and good luck going forward.
Thank you, Bill.
All right, Mark, we'll see you.